Welcome to everyone once again. Thanks for joining us. Just a little bit about myself. But before I tell you guys about myself, I'd just like to inform you guys we are going to run 2 polls this afternoon. It's pretty quick and easy to do. You just basically read the question in front of you on your screen, and then you click your answer and you click submit. I will be able to see the results coming through live. So I think let's start one poll now. I'm going to launch the poll, and you guys should be able to see the poll on your side. And you guys can just click on the answer and submit your vote. While you guys are busy there, I'll tell you a bit about myself. My name is Heinrich Lotz. I'm married to an amazing wife for 9 years, known her for just under 20 years. And we've got a 3-year-old boy named Grayson. Currently, my son is ruling our world because he is attending most meetings with me on my lap. I think most of us have endured some craziness throughout the lockdown, and for me, one was definitely having a 3-year-old over my neck and on my lap during the lockdown. Thanks for those who participated in the poll. I can see there's quite some few votes come through. I'm going to close the vote after polling now. So the question was, do you find the way the world is changing scary? And I put a few options there that I thought that you guys might actually select. And there's an overwhelming 75% to say that no, that's not scary, but everybody's excited to embrace it. And that's good news for us. It's good news for your business, and it's good news for the industry to move forward. So for my working career, just to give you feedback, is I'm currently working at OneSolve as a general manager. I come from a drafting background in the mining sector. And I've worked on and coordinated some interesting projects. The 2 projects that I would like to highlight was one that we built the world's longest single flight trough belt conveyor, which is about 27.8 kilometers long. It's a single flight belt conveyor. And it currently is still the record as far as I know. I know there was a 36-kilometer conveyor that was in tender phase a few years ago, but I'm not sure it took off. Then I also found out that if you allow recoffee to stand still in manufacturing process, that it becomes as hard as concrete. And this is because recoffee is only 5% coffee. The rest is glucose and chicory. This I all learned while we were building Egron 5 for Nestle and Escort. And this is where I caught up a lot of industry knowledge, if I can state it like that, where I learned a lot of valuable tools while I was on site, dealing with the actual the site, dealing with the construction, dealing with the orders, and dealing with the design office. I've been working in Autodesk software since I was about 14 years old, and I think you can say I'm a little bit obsessed with visualizing the future and its possibilities. So now, while I was on my 2 years in Escort, the stint I did there on site, I found that managing assets on site is probably one of your key factors in running a successful project. And I think after today, you guys will be able to agree with me on this topic. It's the underlying factor that ties everything kind of together, especially for a project-driven example. So first, I want to show you guys and whet your appetite about the new possibilities that we get in BIM and Vault, BIM 360. I know a few customers had a concern about what the future holds for Vault, but I think with this integration, you'll see as Vault is definitely here to stay.
Autodesk Vault 2020 continues to improve design collaboration with Project Sync in Vault Professional, directly in response to your feedback through the Autodesk community. Working with our Vault customers who manufacture custom building products around the globe, we see more and more projects that require design collaboration outside your company's firewall. New in Vault Professional is Project Sync, a secure way to share just the data that you choose between Vault and BIM 360. Autodesk Vault is purpose-built to help our customers efficiently manage their engineering data, improve collaboration within their teams, and take control of the design development process. BIM 360 is an online platform connecting your project teams and data in real time, from design through construction, supporting informed decision-making throughout the project lifecycle. Eliminate file sharing by email, eliminate the need to download or upload files from an FTP site, and reduce the opportunities for errors in transmission. Now, your relevant design data is synced between Vault and BIM 360. Upload from Vault to BIM 360, download from BIM 360 to Vault, or set up specific folders to sync in both directions without the need for user interaction. As the project administrator, you can control on a project-by-project basis which data should be pulled from BIM 360 to Vault, pushed from Vault to BIM 360, or synced in both directions. To be clear, it's not all your data. Just the data that you choose will be synced with full permission control. Streamline collaboration by securely syncing selective data to your extended project teams with Autodesk Vault Professional and Project Sync. Autodesk Vault 2020 continues to build on your feedback from Autodesk ideas, forums, and beta community with these usability improvements.
Before we start talking about the tracking of assets, we need to actually look at what defines the word term asset. Now, it's not assets we talk about in accounting terms. This is anything that can be populated on a list. It's anything that we can actually define on that list, and that means we can track it. So whether it is from equipment or structures or foundations like pile caps, we actually define that as an asset in BIM 360. So we're tracking different materials and assets on throughout this life cycle of its life, from when it's digital to when it's installed on site. It controls basically everything on the project, and that's when I mentioned it. It's the key underlying factor for us. It controls our costing, it controls our schedules, and more importantly, it triggers milestones. Certain installations or certain structures going up and being commissioned at a certain level will trigger a milestone for the customer, and then they release payment on that basis. Now, I think if we can imagine, by not doing these things and not tracking the assets, it can actually have dire consequences to our project and future to our company as a whole. As you can see, I've listed a few issues that you can come across if you do not track your assets, and this is actually has happened to myself in my previous working career, because we didn't manage these assets correctly. Not all of them happen at once, but it's a ripple effect that starts. So for years, companies have actually tracked their assets via Excel or via little notepads, even from the storm, and collecting a little book with that carbon paper in it. I don't know if some of you can remember those, but they did have a system of tracking it. Now, with today's fast-paced world and the need for information a lot quicker, we need these type of systems to become more intelligent. And when I say intelligent, I don't mean just updating the asset and the status of that asset or where the asset is on site. I'm talking about going further. I'm talking about where an asset update triggers an invoice, a model that automatically gets updated, schedules that should be adjusted, things like construction sequencing being affected because a part's not on site, but then an early alert has to go out. That is where we would like BIM 360 asset module and build to go. Some of it's already there, some of it we can help with already. But for now, what's been published to market with this BIM 360 asset inside the build licensing is the foundation block. Like I like you to call it the foundation block, because it is the underlying thing that will support all these technologies and intelligence above this. So if we look at the holistic view of BIM 360 assets, we first have to look at where you start. And when one places items or assets, in our case, into a database, it really opens up so much opportunity to us. When you start assigning properties or attributes to these assets, we can then start manipulating this to our advantage. BIM 360 assets is a part of the BIM 360 build license, as I said, and it is available open to the market currently. So the key difference in functionalities of workflows that we need to look at is, the first one is creating the list. I think this is probably where the most hiccup will come in the system, or the most headache, if I can call it. And it's not that it's difficult, it's just this is the start of the process. This is where you have to get it right. You can change stuff afterwards, but when you do bulk things, you have to just do it correctly. It's essential that we get this portion correct. It enables us to have a centralized document system, which also allows us to link it through to BIM 360 docs. The BIM 360 Docs is underlaying to all the other BIM applications. I don't have that chart here, but I think some of you might have seen it. But it allows us to attach those things from BIM 360 Docs to our assets. Later on, I'll show you how that looks. We also have barcode and QR scanning functionality in the system. This barcode and QR functionality, I think, has got massive opportunity and massive growth inside Autodesk space, where you can later on link this to stuff like RFID tagging or Bluetooth technology. So the foundation that has been set now is just going to allow us to grow vertically now with this. And the sooner your project gets on top of, gets familiarized with BIM 360 assets, you can just grow with it. The checklist is integrated into our management system, which comes from BIM 360 Build. It's a normal checklist that we use for quality assurance. Project managers would particularly like this one because they can see when stuff is signed off, when the customer is signed off, and that will trigger payment once again for them. The defects is actually just an issue list that comes from BIM 360 Build, which you can attach basically to the asset. Typical things is you would be able to take a photo of it and mark it up and attach it to the asset and say, sorry, this is not, this doesn't pass our requirements. Someone has to attend to it. And when you run an issue, you can actually assign it to a company or a person in the organization to look at and report back on or fix it at the same time. And then inspection and testing, this kind of goes hand in hand with the checklist and the issues as well. So fundamentally, we can do all of this from our mobile device. And I think this is where I said earlier that we need the technology to be more in real time. The fact that someone can quickly take a snapshot or quickly scan a barcode and then pull up the whole asset and look at all the stuff, it stops them from walking up 10 flights of stairs or driving to site or driving to the stores, or actually filling out these spreadsheets at night and then sending them to head office for capturing into the schedule. That time delay become quite significant over a long period of time on a big project. So this is where things are getting really sped up on site. So this example I've shown you guys now is how a typical workflow would be inside an asset module. First, we look at defining the project and the project requirements. In the first step, defining the asset and the properties, we call this creating the asset list. We can then break them down into categories. Now, categories would typically be like manufacturer, or mechanical, vendor supplied, mechanical, internal, or structural, or you can create these categories up as you go along. This is completely customizable to you as an organization. Then here we can also use other tools to make this even better. I won't delve into it too much, but you can use software like Assemble, that's also from Autodesk. But when we import this all into BIM 360, we then can start assigning status sets to them. Now, these status sets is up to you as an individual. There's set standard ones. I'll go through them a little bit later. But you can use stuff like design, fabrication, in transit for road, in transit at sea, maybe some commissioning sign-off statuses, but it's up to you what you want to have there. We can also use this link to link the issues to assets at the bottom and review them. And then we can track them. So using the barcodes, we can then obviously scan the asset and have direct access to that specific item. Then instead of going through all these assets to try and find it, you just scan the barcode and you'll be able to pick it up, and it will pull up all the relevant information, including its issues, checklists, attachments, anything that was attached to that asset. So before we finally come to the back end of this, I actually want to show you guys. Let me just get the laser out quickly. So I'm at this point now, and this is where this whole system comes and shows value to us and to our customers. Is excuse me, is where we can export this and print documentation and reports out to our customer, pass it over for handover, and get our final sign-off. I'd like to show you guys now the second poll. before I move on. So at the same story, you can just, I'm going to launch it. There it is launched. You should be able to see it now. So I'm actually just asking, what is your experience on with mobility on site? Then while you guys are voting there, I'd just like to remind you guys that if you guys have any questions, you can post them in the chat box to us. There will be 1 or 2 people helping me round them up afterwards when we do the Q&A. But please feel free to ask your questions. If we can't answer them right now, we might just get back to you later, but later on. Right, I've got enough votes, I think. We said, what is the experience with mobility on site? And 80% is coming back to us and saying we have not yet used it. 20% is we want to use it. So that's quite interesting for me to see. Then to go on to the next slide, I'd just like to show you where you can create a single asset and how you create multiple assets. So this is actually the system how it looks inside. You'll see there that this is our hub we used. You can create a single asset by loading up a single asset and filling all the criteria in, or you can import the asset by using an Excel file. Now they've provided a download sample. In this download sample, you'll have these red or orange blocks or columns, which represents the same as the starlight items here. This is items that's crucial to the database to work. Those items are non-negotiables. Those need to be filled in. But once that's done, you can populate the list, and the only limitation to your upload is just the size. But if you can load 1,000 items, you can load 1,000 items. That's not a problem for the system to handle. And this is the start of it, right? So that has to be done correctly and efficiently. The next one is where I showed you guys, if you look at an asset and you click on the asset, this is the asset module on the left-hand side, it actually pops up with a flight on the right-hand side. Now, I've set up my own statuses for this example, but the predefined ones that comes out is the one you can see where I'm showing you guys now, where you've get specified, order, deliver, install, pre-starter. That's just the default it comes out with. You don't need to use this. This is highly customizable. I've used the commissioning phases for a motor that WEG supplies, maybe for argument's sake. This is a high voltage motor, but in my industry, I don't make the motor. I just supply it from the vendor to site. So I don't need to do anything about let's say fabrication of it or ordering the parts of it. I don't really care about those items. I'm more concerned about the commissioning of it. You can actually maybe add another one in here for FAT testing, which is our factory asset testing. And once that is done, the barcode can be scanned on the item itself. It can be populated here and your barcode will pop in there. Then on the same assets, you get issues. It's an issue tab. Excuse me. This issue tab is the same issue tab I spoke about earlier, where you can take a photo, redline it, make comments on it, and assign this issue to an actual individual or organization or company that's inside your hub. Then the checklist. Now, the checklist actually only came out, the functionality came out 2 weeks ago, I think. Before that, it was, and we knew about it, but it wasn't available for us to test. This checklist is a direct attachment to your BIM build section, where you've got your normal checklist there. If you guys are not familiar with those checklists, we can certainly provide you more information on that. And this attachment is any document. I like this attachment feature because when I pull up an asset myself, I can then at least see the torque settings to the bolts. I can see the alignment installation procedure for maybe the shaft, the startup procedure, the bump procedure for the motors. So any document you want to have, you can attach them to that asset. And whoever's going to use this information on site can have that information, and they don't have to go look in docs under the project, under a specific folder, and hope someone saved it in the right spot. This is very, very powerful. And then on the barcode scanning thing. So while I talk, I would like you guys to just take out your phones, maybe if you want. You can scan this code here for us with your phone. So just open up your camera and point your camera at that at the code, and there's a message that will pop up there for you. But the barcode scanner actually just utilizes your actual camera inside your phone. And this is not new technology. By no means is this new technology. This technology has been out for quite some few years, but they're just utilizing it inside as a separate item field for a unique identifier that does help the system go through. And it can read two types of barcodes, which is a normal barcode and then a QR code, which I asked you guys to scan. Right, I'll move on to the next one. So I'm basically coming to the end of my slideshow, but the crux of this is if we can control our assets, I think you can see that we'll have faster commissioning, we'll have less risk, we'll know exactly what is where and how come it's there. I think our planning can be better. There's massive advantages to being able to track your assets, to being able to know where is what, for planning, for scheduling, for costing, and so forth. So I'd like to thank you guys for the time you've given me today. I'd just like also to take this time to remind you about tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, we've got expanding your capabilities with Inventor. Yashin will present this again for us. And then my favorite that I've been looking at for the whole week is Vault and Fusion Life Cycles. That will be done with Tyrell. This is some pretty cool stuff. It's happening between Fusion and Vault and the cloud. Then there has been links sent to all of you for the webinars. If you haven't received it, please just make a comment in the chat box and we'll get that link off to you. It's to access all the online webinars that happened this week and the ones that's coming. And it provides us with some feedback that's valuable to us moving forward to provide this content to you guys. When you guys feel ready to connect with us, you can use our landline number or you can go find us on our website. Then, is there any questions? I'll open up my chat to my side. Okay, so Microsoft Office Projects is... Okay, so let me just repeat the question. For those who didn't hear, it is quite soft. We did determine this in an earlier session. Wally's asking that he's using Microsoft Office Projects, and it looks like it's similar to what he's doing there. And he wants to know, is it the same? And if it's not the same, what's the differences? So, Wally, to answer your question, Microsoft Office Projects and Primavera P6, they're all basically the same thing, and that's a project planning scheduling tool. There's still both of those applications still ties back into the Autodesk range of suites. It ties into Navisworks, and you can also have it tie into BIM 360 Plan, but it's an essential, it's a planning tool. So we are busy with big customers moving them over to these assets, and I'm almost certain you're using your WBS for your project planning when you set up your Microsoft Office Projects. But Microsoft Office Projects is actually just a planning tool. So if you think about it now, currently, when you get an update from site, you have to wait for someone to tell you where those items are, what's happening to those items, and then you can update your schedule or your baseline or re-baseline your schedule to get new forecast data out. Now, this is not replacing that. It's not a competitor for it. It's just to control the assets and to have the information at your fingertips on the fly. In Microsoft Office Project, it's not connected currently to any documentation where you have the specs or the installation guides or the operating manuals or maintenance manuals to it. You don't have access to the models, which you can view in BIM 360 Build. You can't see drawings from it. So it's actually just a monitoring your MS Projects. It's just a monitoring tool and to forecast new dates and planning tool. And I would envisage this, when I said that triggers your schedules to be updated, to this tie back later on back into your planning tools. I hope that answers your question. Is there any other questions? Thanks for joining us, guys. Hope to see you tomorrow morning, where Yashin will be presenting the next webinar for us. And then my favorite that I'm waiting for is the Vault and the PLM side of things. Have a good day, and thanks again. Bye-bye.